All right, thank you so much for joining us today on this episode of the Expert Series from the Advisor Authority. I've got a great show for you guys today. I'm actually joined by Lauren Kaufman. She is the Senior Business Consultant at ClientWise. ClientWise is a partner of ours, and one of the things we like to do, they have a coaching arm and we do not. So if you guys know anything about us, we're training. We want to get you through things, but advisors need to connect with someone and learn more about what they can do to get out of their own way and really focus on that personalized space of accountability and expanding their horizons. So that's where ClientWise comes in. And she believes it it really opens doors for them once they can get that focus on their personalized space. And ClientWise is really the premier coaching and consulting company exclusively serving top performing advisors and their teams. So in her role, Lauren helps advisors and their teams maximize their enterprise value by building enduring value in their firms. She also oversees ClientWise's valuation team, which she helped launch last year. She's passionate about all things practice management and helping advisors reach their true potential. So again, great show. So happy to have you here with us. I think one of the things we really want to focus on today is that mindset shift, that limiting belief place where a lot of advisors are trying to figure out, I'm doing all the right things, I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and yet something's still not clicking. So why do you feel advisors are having so much trouble making that shift?
Yeah, Blake, thank you so much for having me today. I'm really excited to be here with you. This is a topic that in my coaching and consulting with advisors and their teams and all of the ClientWise coaches, we work a lot with advisors on. I think that for starters, based on the phase you're in and your advisor journey, there's different limiting beliefs that will pop up, right? If you're early on, it's, I'm not good at this, or actually that one might stay with you forever. But
Yeah.
there's I don't know the right connections, or I'm not good at business development. And then as you progress in your career, they tend to change and evolve those limiting beliefs over time. But I think, it's a tough industry. It's a hard job. The failure rate is high,
Mm.
unfortunately. And I think we could have a whole nother episode on things we could do to help out, mitigate that in the industry a bit more. But, I think that it is tough. And then you often see your peers who you might believe are doing better than you, or are better at asking for referrals or whatnot. And so these limiting beliefs just start to compound. And, I think that's really where folks like ClientWise or Advisor Authority come in and can help you break down some of those beliefs.
Yeah, and it feels like because, you're right, the industry is very hard, the failure rate's really high because you have to build a book and that means you have to knock on doors. Or in the old days, you knocked on doors. Now it's more, social media and webinars and things like that. But there's a lot of rejection and there's a lot of, this is a comparison game because we're in the social era now where you can get instant gratification and find out what everyone else is doing online through social media. So you instantly have the feedback that they said no to me, and then you get on, Instagram later and you scroll through things and you realize other people are more successful than you in your mind. So you go, well, I'm never going to reach that. And you just begin to hear that voice in your head talking you out of all the things you really should be focusing on. The
Yeah.
whole you can goes away and it becomes you probably shouldn't because you can't, right? And
Hmm.
that's so detrimental. I think what happens when advisors who may be good at their jobs, who may be very good advisors, but they have these limiting beliefs that prevent them from reaching that next level? What are some of the things that they go through? And for advisors on the phone, on the call right now, listening, what are some of your telltale signs that, hey, this is a hardcore limiting belief that is preventing you from reaching that goal? So no matter how much you overthink it, you're going to be stuck. What are some of those triggers?
Yeah, one that I hear all the time, and I work with a lot of clients on this, is I am bad at asking for referrals,
Mm.
or asking for referrals is too salesy. So I hear that one all the time, and that's something that really can hold advisors back from growing their business. Every benchmark study out there in the industry tells us that referrals from existing clients is the number one source of growth. So if you aren't doubling down on those efforts, you're blocking yourself from growing.
Mm.
And so a lot of the work that I do with clients is helping them think through well, one, shifting the mindset of referrals not being salesy.
Hmm.
Uh, I personally, if some of these referral scripts that you hear out there, that would not work for me at all. It's just not genuine to who I am or the relationships that I have with clients. And so helping advisors think through how can they approach asking for referrals in a manner that's more genuine to them, and something that they can do long term and isn't going to elicit this flight or response every time they have to do it. So
Yeah, and I feel like that's so true. Everyone we've spoken to, and I'm sure you guys have as well, they all dream of that one day where it's a referral only practice,
yeah.
or the phone just rings for them and people go, "Hey, I would like to see you because I heard from such and such that you guys are the best." Every advisor dreams of that day. And then in the process of getting there, they somehow turn referral into a four-letter word where nobody
Hmm.
wants to say it, nobody wants to give them. How do I do this? And so I can feel like that's an even more powerful place to realize how they're not doing well enough or they're not good enough, because they'll see someone use a referral, even if they don't call it that, they call it maybe a warm introduction,
Yeah.
but you don't know that. So you see them getting a lot of referrals and you're like, I don't know how I can't be doing this, you know? How would they, you talk about authenticity, being able to ask for referrals from a place of, genuinely curious and your own language and from your own place. How do they somehow lean into that and create an empowering belief from a limiting one?
I think, testing out different asks or ways to phrase the referral or introduction, however you call it, and see what sits well with them. Often I find that limiting beliefs tend to dissipate as you uh, do the activity more often,
Mm.
and so really helping advisors just get comfortable with those first couple of times of doing it, and then they'll tweak their method, and a year later come to me and be like, I can't believe I was ever afraid of that. So just I think there's that kind of repetitive practice, continuous learning, adjusting that can go a long way.
Yeah. So when you talk to them about what some of the things they're going through as they begin to create those empowering beliefs and that practice, just getting the practice in and showing that it has legs, right? What are some of the ways that you help advisors kind of get out of their own way as they practice?
Yeah, that's a great question. Really, I want to understand as their coach why they're having this limiting belief in the first place, and how is it true?
Hmm.
Do you have any evidence that this is a true limiting, a true belief? Sometimes there is evidence there. And so then we can, okay, well, let's tweak what we're doing so that we can change it for next time. But helping them identify how that's playing out for them, how it's quite literally limiting them, and then what strategies we're going to use going forward to change the narrative and the action.
Cool. Yeah, and it feels like when we talk about evidence, in my coaching background, we studied a lot about the saboteur and where you can hear that in other people's beliefs and the way that they speak and about themselves, usually. I'm not good enough, I can't, that doesn't work for me, that sort of thing. And the whole saboteur element is that, you should just look at yourself like Stuart Smalley in SNL. I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me, right? And
Yeah.
eventually that will make you feel better. And affirmations, there's a place for them. But your saboteur in your brain works on evidence. So if you think, no, I can do this, I'm good at this, and your limiting belief says no, your saboteur is that no. And it goes, well, you might be, but here's all this evidence from the time you were 5 where you did everything wrong. And it just pulls all those things out for you. And you're like, I don't have any evidence that I'm good at this. So you just talk yourself out of it. I love that you guys are working together and creating evidence that things do work now. You're
Mhm.
creating that like strength when they go, I'm not good at this. Well, you are. And you go, well, I have evidence. See? I think
Yeah.
that's a really powerful place to play. What are some of the strategies that you use to kind of turn things around and get them into that space?
Yeah, having them. Part of the coaching relationship is it's primarily question based, and so having them, I'll ask them what are hopefully thought-provoking questions. But tell me about a time when this was true for you. And they'll have to think, and they're like, actually, it's never been true.
Oh,
And it's like, well,
really?
then
There you
why do
go.
we have this? You know? So helping them just identify, um, like I said, what is reality, what isn't, and being able to adjust that narrative you have in your head. And I think one thing that I have to acknowledge is that we all have limiting beliefs and we always will. I think that if you don't, there's probably something psychologically wrong with you. Like it's almost a human nature to have some doubt and in yourself. But what's really interesting is how they shift over time, those beliefs, and the reaction or the actions you take to overcome those beliefs.
Yeah, 100%. Thinking about, again, as you're building evidence that, why do you believe this if you have no evidence for it? So one of the questions that I've been asked before is when I'm down into the dumps on myself, my wife was very keen at things, goes, well, where did that come from? And it seems like such an innocuous question, but the other part of me goes, oh, I don't know. And then you start to like try to figure out where did that belief come from? And things can come, they aren't even yours. They come from your parents or they come from a friend's. Somewhere along the line you heard that and you decided that was gospel.
Yeah.
And I think there's definitely this space where, well, that's not right and that doesn't belong to you, so why are you carrying it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I actually had and I sometimes it's hard to decide, is this a limiting belief or is this actually how the world works and sees me? And I had a client the other day who it was a one-on-one coaching session. He's a younger guy, probably 30 years old. And he went and grabbed his suit jacket for our call. And I said, no, you don't have to put your suit jacket on for me. Like, this is casual. I'm just Lauren. And he was like, well, I really feel like without it, people think I'm too young to be a business owner and advisor. And I thought that was interesting because there there is some limiting belief wrapped up in that.
Mhm.
But also, I do think that when you are a younger advisor starting out, there it can be helpful to appear polished or professional or whatever you want to call it. So there is some truth to what he was saying as well.
Yeah, there's that perception piece, but I love that the dressing up thing because when I work with a lot of men as they work through that limiting belief of, well, I should be this, I should be that. And we have young advisors on our team as well. The suit jacket almost acts like a coat of arms. You put on
Mhm.
some armor, you're protecting yourself, you're showing up as the knight of the round table, or so to speak. So you are capable. And I think that a lot of advisors can lean into that. And if you polish your dress and you make sure that whenever you're, putting your best foot forward, it's truly your best foot to defend your kingdom. It doesn't matter whether you're 13 or 35 or 135, you still look the part, you're ready to go. And I think that that's a powerful place too.
Yeah, that is a good point. I had to remind him, we had at ClientWise, we do quarterly workshops for a lot of our advisors. And, these are teams managing lots and lots of assets. And we had one in Dallas a few weeks ago that I was at, and there was an advisor there, very successful, wearing sweatpants and a hoodie. And so I guess at some point you get to your career and you feel comfortable wearing that. I don't know.
And I think that's so true because we talked to some advisors, and while they're in the office, you can see them on webinar calls, but they are hoodies and jeans and things like that. And I always thought, well, that's weird. But I grew up in Chicago, where when you had in the financial district, everybody was dressed to the nines. You had pocket squares, you had $13,000 watches, like it was just a whole thing. And then I come out here to Texas, and some of the financial advisors who work in the local banks, who are very successful, very well connected. I had a conversation with him one time, and he said, well, I can't really wear that stuff because my clientele, they own hundreds of acres of land and they don't trust a suit that pulls up in a Jaguar. It has to be a beat up old Ford. And I come in with mismatched, I'll have a jacket on, but it's not really a jacket. He's
Yeah.
like, they trust that. I'm the expert, but I'm still on their level. And I was like, oh man, that's so true. Play to the area you're in and play to some of those strengths. And it almost makes me feel like in your line of work, the follow-up question would be, what are some of the like low-hanging fruit things that advisors can do or tap into to help them kind of build that confidence that they're doing the right things, or they're in the right place, so they can overcome a limiting belief?
Yeah, I think that, a few limiting beliefs I hear that really stunt their business. We spoke about referrals, not charging enough. I often will have advisors do an audit of their revenue per client on their book, and they'll realize, oh my gosh, I made $100 off of someone last year, And so really thinking through, are you charging for your value? And oftentimes, especially in those earlier days, it's no, I'm not. And so, thinking about that, um, another limiting belief I hear all the time is I can't say no to
Mm,
any prospects. I'm just trying to build this thing up, so I have to take everyone. And, you know, that certainly works for a lot of folks, but since we tend to coach and consult those bigger teams, I see firsthand what happens when you don't say no to someone. You just reach this capacity point, and it really drags down your profitability on your book. And so, um, there are advisors I've worked with who are hardcore about they won't stray from their niche, or they have minimums and they will say no to your cousin if you refer them. I think that's easier said than done. Oftentimes it's scary,
yeah.
to do that. But yeah, do you hear those as well
I
sometimes?
do. I hear a lot of we tell them, hey, you really can't be focusing on prospects and clients. If someone can fog a mirror, might not make them a good client, right? And even Erin makes jokes on her webinars. We're like, when I first started, I really would find anyone who could fog a mirror to help build my book. But, some of our advisors have 300 households and, $600 million. And some of our advisors have 1,100 households and $60 million. And you think, like, which book would you rather have? What business feels better to you as far as the amount of work that's going into it? And so, yes, I think there is definitely a space where advisors also have this. The two fears that feel like it come up for me are, but if I don't get anyone, I'm not going to grow. Like, I need more. I just need more volume, right? And they see themselves as a volume shop, which is a mistake in itself and a totally different conversation. And the second thing is, I want to help. I want to help these people. I'm the one who can help them. How do I be there for them? They're not really my ideal, but I want to help. So there's this balance of trying to be helpful, but also strategic, because you need to grow your business and help others protect themselves. And if they're in an accumulator space and they're really not in need of a financial advisor. They just need to make a few smart decisions.
Yeah.
Learn how to say no, value what you can, and then help someone else in a very minor way reach the level where then you can help them.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of my clients will have, they'll give me the example of they have an A+ client and their granddaughter needs a little help. And
Mm.
it's really like, what do you say no in that instance? It's a hard one, and so thinking through, I often remind advisors, y'all are not nonprofits.
Yep.
You are running businesses. You do need to stay profitable. And so sometimes for the advisors that really struggle with saying no or taking on, everyone, uh, we'll set some sort of parameters or number of clients that don't meet a certain threshold that you're willing to take on each year. So that way it doesn't get unwieldy quick,
Yeah.
but you still feel like you're helping. Because I think, every advisor I've ever worked with just really loves the helping part of the job, like you mentioned. And so, um, but making sure that that's not, you're still thinking about your business from a business perspective.
Yeah. It almost feels like, having a pro bono case. And
Yeah,
so every once in
exactly.
a while, you can have a feel good case that's pro bono. We're not going to take any money off the top, that sort of thing. But if you did those all the time, you're in some serious trouble.
Exactly. Yeah.
So how do you feel about community? Because one of the things that we really value and we try to instill in our advisors is, stay involved with us on the live calls and the rest of the advisors going through. Ask questions, be involved in that energy, because nobody can be successful. I can't say that. Very rarely is someone successful in a vacuum.
Hmm.
And especially in this industry with such a high failure rate, While you are in competition with advisors all over the country, I get that. There's also this camaraderie. So how do you guys position community in how you help advisors kind of get out of their own way and grow?
Yeah, great question. One of our four pillars at ClientWise is community. So we have a lot of different avenues for building community, whether it be we have an entire online portal, or I mentioned our workshops, but I also am just genuinely very passionate about the power of building community. This is the only industry I've ever worked in, so I can't speak to other industries, but I've always been blown away at the amount of study groups and information sharing in this industry and mentorship. And there is an advisor who feels like they are out there alone on an island. There are so many resources and ways to plug into a community and learn from others who've experienced the same things as you. And I often have to kind of laugh because 90% of my coaching calls are around similar topics that advisors are struggling with. And so y'all have all gone through the same stuff
Yeah.
and you don't have to go through it alone, lean on someone who has experienced it before, who has that insight. And I really admire how I've rarely met an advisor who keeps their information to their chest or isn't willing to share their learnings and experience with someone else. And so I just admire, it feels like a industry where people are willing to give back and mentor. So I cannot stress the power of community enough. It helps me tremendously in my career. I've seen it help, all advisors and teams. So yeah, that's one you don't want to sleep on.
No, and so to be intentional, really good point. There are lots of groups and study things. There's things on LinkedIn, and some of them can be really vague, like the FPA group or the
Yeah.
CFP group. They may not share as much as you think, but there are so many resources out there. So advisors should, and I don't want to should at anyone, but it feels like advisors could be more intentional about what they're trying to do in their community by searching for communities either to provide value or to get value from. But if I think if you feel like you're leaning into the first one, what communities can I provide value to based on my experience and some of the things I'm going through? And you'll just get that law of reciprocity. Reciprocity, it'll come back to you. So I love that. I think when I look at how you guys view community and we view community, it's really the truth is the more people you can connect with who are in the same boat with you, the more you guys can sail as far as you want. It's
Yeah.
really hard to trek across the ocean by yourself, but if you have a crew of 10, it's like a piece of cake. So I
Hmm.
think the whole idea is that, if you feel like you're an advisor in a space where there's no one there for me, I don't want to buy a mentor or I can't afford one, that definition of a mentor may be what's limiting you as well.
Yeah.
So there are lots of free resources and groups and things that you can go and just get some of that insight and that camaraderie to really help you kind of get out of your head for a little bit.
Yeah. Or even, I mean, advisors are good at cold calling or approaching folks. If there is a fellow advisor that you see on LinkedIn or in your community and you're like, wow, I'm really impressed by them. I'd love to learn from them. Reach out to them, grab coffee with them. I've never heard of a scenario where someone says no. And so I think that's also a limiting belief is, they might say no or they're too successful to spend time talking to me. But people love to share their stories, their wisdom. And so, don't be afraid to do that.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I love that you called out that limiting belief of, because we just had that. We were trying to contact a mentor who works with much larger organizations. We just wanted some advice from him. He'll never take us. We're not his cup of tea. And he was like, oh, yeah, sure. I see what you're doing. Yeah, let's put a call together. And so just that moment where, well, this isn't going to work. They don't really want anything to do with us. And then you just put it out there anyway, and it comes back and you go, oh. And so I feel like there's definitely this space where we, as a business owners or advisors, especially, you discount your value and your level of expertise and experience when you're thinking of contacting someone above you
Yeah.
that like, they'll never talk to me. This isn't worth it. I'm too small potatoes. And I feel
Mhm.
like, man, what a disservice to yourself. You never know what they'll say.
Yeah. Yeah, actually you're making me think the owner of ClientWise, Ray Sclafani, he's been in the industry for not to date him, but years. And he the other day he copied me on an email where he asked someone very well known in the industry for a referral. I mean, he just straight up asked for it. And I was like, wow, that is a level of confidence that I am not at quite yet, but I strive to be at. And sure enough, the referral came through. And I just thought, that probably took him years to finesse how he did it, to have the confidence to do it. Some people just naturally have more confidence there than others. But, it was really great to see that you ideally get to a place after a while of where it just happens and you're not scared anymore.
Yeah, and I also think that the other side of that is no matter how big you get, no matter how successful you are, no matter how seasoned you are in what you do, you still get those nerves when you're about to ask for a referral. It doesn't matter how good you are at being on stage and how long you've been doing it. Every time you're about to walk out to those big lights in that crowd, there are the butterflies, there are the what ifs, there are the doubts, right? And so if even someone as established as Aaron or Ray or any of the other avatars in the industry, uh, they still get a little nervous and they still get that, like, could they reject me? This may not work. I need to finesse how I deliver this and ask for this. If they're going through that and they're way above your perceived level of success, it's okay for you to feel the same way.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's how we grow, right?
Right.
I think that if you aren't feeling uncomfortable every now and then, that you aren't pushing yourself enough.
Yep.
And it is funny because you get to a place in your career where you finally feel like you've leveled some of those limiting beliefs off a bit. And I always feel like, okay, when I'm there personally, that means it's time for the next thing. Maybe I go after bigger clients or try a new marketing approach or whatnot. What will get me back in that state of uncomfortableness? Because that's how you grow.
Yep. And I also feel like there's this, the comfort zone is such a good point, and we'll wrap it up here pretty soon. But the comfort zone is such a big thing because advisors want to grow and they want to challenge themselves. And the limiting belief may not be that, well, you can't or you're not good enough. It may be that, hey, you're comfortable. Why are you messing with it? So on one hand, they're like, I just want to hit $1 million. I just want to hit $2 million. And then their brain goes, but why? You're comfortable. And they go, oh, yeah, okay, I guess I'll just stay here. So they'll continue to want it and they'll tell you that they want to make that change. But when you present the opportunity to do so, they somehow find a way to sabotage it because they're not saying they can't do it. They're saying they just shouldn't.
Yeah. Yep. Those shoulda, woulda, couldas. They'll get
Right.
you.
Right. That's very true. So thank you so much for being a guest. I think one of the things I want to end on are what are some of the key takeaways and encouragement pieces for you? Like what's one belief you feel advisors should work on first, or could just start exploring first to see whether it's true or where did it come from, or how do we overcome this, or what would it look like if we didn't have this? What do you feel?
Yeah, going back to my original one around referrals, I really think that's some low-hanging fruit for most advisors. And so thinking about why are you fearful of asking for referrals? What are you worried is going to happen? And then thinking through what your referral method and strategy is going to be. And I encourage you, start with a few clients who you have a great relationship with, and just test the waters out, and I bet you it will go better than you think it will.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like if you, especially if you're going to use those close clients as kind of guinea pigs to maybe help you refine how you're asking for a referral, you might
Yeah,
have that relationship as well where they go, hey, Ted, this I understand what you're asking for, but I don't want to give it to you when you say it like that. But if you said it like this, and so that kind of gets your wheels turning. I love that. And going to your existing clients and practicing and getting some feedback and getting some confidence.
yeah.
Yes, definitely something to work on. So cool, even for myself.
100%.
100%. Well, Lauren, thank you so much for joining me today. Lots of value. Where could they go? Where could advisors go to learn more about you and ClientWise and what it looks like to get started and all that stuff?
Yeah, so our website is www.clientwise.com, and you can see all of our different coaching programs, consulting, and then also we, as you mentioned, the opening launched valuation services this past year. So for firms that are looking for evaluation, you can find more information on our website as well.
Nice. Awesome. Is there a type of advisor that's ideal for you or maybe a segment?
Yeah, we typically cater mostly to advisors with teams. So our average client size is around 500 million assets. So, but like I said, I work with advisors who are solos, and then we work with some of the biggest names in the industry. But typically, our expertise is around the teaming area.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Well, again, Lauren, it was so great having you join me. Lots of insight. And I will make sure when this episode is ready to go, you guys get a chance to listen to all of it and connect with Lauren and connect with the ClientWise team and see what your options look like to really get out of your own way, expand your horizons, and start really growing to like a weed, just growing like a weed.
Yep. Thank you, Blake, for having me. I appreciate it.
You bet.